All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Cher Musico. I'm going to be your host today for Take Part in Communion. This is going to be an online conversation between me and Buck Wylde. I'm the executive producer of Mustache Envy. And so we're going to talk about what it means to be seen, to be valued, and to keep creating in a world that often overlooks us. This isn't just a chat, it's a communion. Hello, Buck.
Hey there. I'm Buck and Trigger today. I'm a little of both.
Yes.
So yeah, I've been performing in drag since about 2011. You've known me pretty much as long as that. And I was became a member of Mustache Envy, I would say in like 2014-ish, 2013, 14. And I am also I have my own show. It's a Dallas's only drag king brunch called Sausage Party, Buck Wild Sausage Party. And yeah, it's my little baby. And I just am on the heels of being eliminated from a from a the I guess it's the world's first televised all drag king reality competition called King of Drag on Reverie TV. Surreal, but
It has
we
been.
we did that, huh?
Yeah. So, yeah. So, for people that may not know, I'll just do a quick bio of me and give a quick synopsis of you. I know you just went through that, and tell
Mhm.
people what Mustache Envy is, so maybe they can have some context for people that say aren't local. So, like I said, I'm Cher Musico. I'm a queer, autistic, Filipinx American interdisciplinary artist. I explore dimensions of home related to identity, domestic labor, and community. My work blends nostalgia and memory that honors kind of personal and cultural roots while reflecting on my Filipino American heritage and also queer identity through personal and reflective lens. In addition to my studio practice, I spend a lot of time behind the scenes in creative production, event planning, and community organizing. As a poet, I used to compete and perform at both local and national poetry slams, was a teaching artist, and sat on the board of a creative writing program for young writers. And I'm the technical director and operations manager in the visual arts department at a local university, and the co-founder and executive producer of Mustache Envy, Drag and Queerlesque, a drag king-centric performance troupe that centers queer expression and celebration. And Mustache Envy is a huge part of my social practice. Buck Wylde, you were voted Best Drag King by Dallas Entertainment Awards and Dallas Voice, which is a
Mhm,
local publication, for two
mhm,
years in a row. You're
mhm,
the producer of Sausage Party, Dallas's only drag king brunch, and
mhm.
voted also the best brunch in Dallas by Dallas
Yeah.
Viewers Award. You're also named in Pride.com's
Yeah, the
drag kings you
20
should
the 20
definitely
drag
know.
yeah, tw is it 20 drag kings you should definitely know, is that right?
Yes. Well,
Yeah,
I've
that's
seen
cool.
different versions. I guess it depends on
Yeah.
what year they put it out. Because one year it was 10, another year it was 15, then it was
Keep
20.
adding.
Either way, it's like you're one of those drag kings that you should definitely know. So we've
Yeah,
always been excited about that. You coined a new phrase, remember who the buck you are.
I
But your
did.
tagline for Buck Wild is a smooth Latin drag king whose teeth are sharper than a switchblade comb.
Yeah, and I've been playing around also with, hide your tears and protect your necks.
Yes.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, because, I like to include my heritage a little bit in there too, because that's such a big part of my drag. It's so embedded in the fabric of my drag that, I just always like to include a little bit of that in there.
Yeah, so I'll circle back to what Mustache Envy is because I'm sure we'll chit chat about that. But yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about visibility. Both you and I are essentially class of '94, so we're
Mhm.
about the
Yeah.
same age.
We were both 94? I didn't know that.
Yes.
Oh
And
my god.
I feel like we both have kind of a similar upbringings in the sense of culturally. I'm Filipino American. You
Mexican American. Mhm.
Mexican American.
Yeah.
Uh, my mom is Filipino. My dad is white. With you, I
Uh,
know your
yeah.
mom is Mexican.
Yeah, and my dad was white.
So, there's a lot of the Spanish undertones within our background. And I feel that
Mhm.
even though we have different experiences, we grew up in the same area. So there's so many things that you will bring up that I feel there's so many similarities culturally, even though yours is Mexican and mine is Filipino,
Yeah.
that we relate to.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like parallel lives. I find that a lot with us.
so for me, it's like things that I see with second generation.
Mhm.
Uh, uh, Kind of this diaspora of second generation, growing up in America, brought up within culture and food. For me, like food was a big deal. I grew up in Oklahoma near a military town, and I was very fortunate that there was very much a prevalent Filipino community that was there, and my parents are very active in it. And so we were constantly going to these Filipino parties where food was always there. There were things at our house that we hosted where there's potlucks of food all over the place. So there were so many things of culture that I didn't realize at the time were so embedded and
Mhm.
ingrained in me until I moved away. And then listening to other people of the same type of heritage that didn't experience that, like my son, he's his dad's full Filipino, and I'm half. So
Mhm.
essentially, he's more Filipino than me per se, yet doesn't have any of those experiences with food or culture, the language, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So share with us kind of your experiences as a Mexican American. What
Yeah.
are some of the challenges you've dealt with?
Well, yeah, I was actually mostly raised by my mother's side of the family. Yeah, my father was really not much in the picture too often. So, I was raised by my grandparents on my mother's side and the rest of the family on that side. So there was, um, there's lots of food that you wouldn't necessarily have. I know now, outside of the Mexican culture, it's not an everyday thing like the tamaladas that we would have. We would make our tamales every twice a year, and every all of the generations would sit around, spreading the masa on the uh, on the corn husks, and we'd sit around and talk and connect like that. We would. We also we had menudo, and we had um, migas in the morning and stuff like that. So when yeah, like you said, when I moved away from there, I'm from that space, that wasn't there anymore, so it's it's kind of just kind of taken for granted that that is part of your culture, and you are in it, immersed in it. We didn't speak Spanish though, because my grandfather was very in that time in the late 70s, early 80s. He was of the mind that we should try to assimilate. And that's how it was happening in the schools too, is like assimilation was like really part of it. Was the order of the day was to become more of a the melting pot than the tossed salad. The salad where you but more
On
of like this.
context.
Yeah. Uh, so it's more of like the melting pot, like at the time where they wanted you to kind of, embed yourself, and like your culture starts to fall away a little bit. So he would ask us to not speak Spanish in the house and correct us if we did. And so like my great grandmother spoke fluent Spanish all the time. Barely spoke English. My grandparents spoke half and half. My mom was like, "Nah, I'm good." And so we didn't speak hardly any Spanish. So my Spanish actually really sucks. Now, I took 2 years of it in high school and then a year of it in college, and it's still not super comfortable. I can read it, but I do wish that I had more connection to that. That it was looked at a little bit differently. I grew up in a botanica. Like my mother is always of the mind of, oh, we're really not that Mexican, but I'm like, Mom, I went to Catholic school in Oak Cliff, and she was like, yeah, but we're still not that Mexican. I go, oh, but we had the tamaladas all the time. My grandmother would rub the eggs on our heads, and that kind of thing, and would tell us the cuckoo's gonna get you. And She's like, yeah. I was like, but we grew up in a botanica. Like our family owned a botanica, but they called it a book and gift shop, to make it more accessible to the outside world, the mainstream. Well, when I think about it now, there was no way that anybody was just going to walk in off the street. It was not, it did not look that friendly to the outside world. They tried, but it was very, very specific, a specific upbringing, very, very Hispanic upbringing.
Do you have you ever gotten the feeling, or someone made you feel, because you can't speak Spanish, have
Mhm.
they made you feel a particular way?
Oh, I've always gotten looks from people like this disappointment, this look of disappointment. Oh my gosh. Anybody, because I guarantee you, anybody that speaks Spanish will speak Spanish to me first if I have not said anything. It always is that way. They speak Spanish first, and then I go, "Oh, I'm sorry." And most of the time, I'll say it in Spanish. I'm sorry. I'll say "lo siento," and tell them I don't speak Spanish very well, and then they go, "Oh," like
Yeah,
that. Like especially, yeah. I don't know. It's very hard because I always feel that guilt. Like I should be, a better Mexican than I am, or something. It's always like this feeling that I'm just not quite enough of this or that, because yeah, I mean, because if you look at me, that you're not gonna think immediately. You're gonna think I'm from somewhere else, or I'm a other of some sort. And so people always try to figure that out. They ask that all the time. They go, "So, where are you from?"
yeah,
And I'm like, "What do you mean?" I mean, and so I don't tell them the whole story, but so I'm never looked at as white. So people always that are white are always like, "Where are you from? What's your what's going on here?" But or if a person that speaks Spanish starts talking to me, they'll start immediately talking to me in Spanish, and then I have tried to speak Spanish back, and then they just switch to English because
mhm.
they're like, I'm not even gonna mess with this person.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
feel I feel that's similar-ish to what
yeah.
I dealt with, but on the same context of the assimilation part, uh,
Hmm.
the schools encouraging, don't speak your language to the children because
Hmm.
they need to speak English.
Hmm.
My maternal grandmother lived with us, uh, and she didn't speak English at all. Um, and I didn't know growing up. I was always like, I don't know how to speak Tagalog, which is the Filipino
Yeah.
main language. Um, I don't understand it. My grandma always speaks to me, and we had certain ways we communicated, even though we couldn't speak the same language.
Hmm.
But it wasn't until I grew older, I didn't realize I couldn't understand what she was saying because she was speaking in her own dialect, which is
Oh,
what and
yeah.
so that dialect is completely different than what Filipino was. And so it's like, oh, okay.
Oh, I
So
didn't realize that.
So it's a strange place because I can't speak it fluently, but
Hmm.
now I have this recognition. If someone speaks slow enough, I can mostly understand what they're saying.
Hmm. Yeah, I can read Spanish,
Hmm.
and I can translate. So like when Keith and I go on vacation or whatever, if we go anywhere where we're ordering food or whatever, I usually will take over, and I can make my way through pretty well. And he's always like, "Yeah, you're really good at this." I'm like, "No, I'm really not. I'm not very good at it. I just, I can read Spanish, but I just
The typical syllables to get by type of
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. But like if somebody starts speaking to me in Spanish, it's so fast that some of the pieces of the words drop off during the dialogue,
Hmm.
like parts of the word, so it's kind of runs together.
Hmm.
So I can't like
Same.
in my head like parse it out as well, you know.
Hmm.
But I will go into like the grocery store, and I do think in Spanish a lot too. Like I will I'll go into the grocery store and I'll look at vegetables or whatever, and sometimes the Spanish word comes to me before the English word. So so there's a little bit of that happens sometimes. It's wild.
We've talked about it before,
Hmm.
one-on-one. I know for me growing up, especially, um, I'll hear someone speaking English, but I'll recognize their accent, and I want
Hmm.
to ask them, "Oh, are you Filipino?" Because I want to connect with them. And
Right.
generally, I'll ask them that. And so, growing up, I'd always to have that connection. I'd always say it's like, "Oh, I'm half. My mom's Filipino, but my dad's white. Oh, I'm half." Just
Hmm.
always saying I'm half. And somewhere within, growing up, finally had this recognition. It's like I need to stop saying that.
Yep.
Kind of validating myself and saying that, I'm Filipina, I'm Filipino American, and really taking hold of that,
Hmm.
and being confident with it, because recognizing when I was like, oh, I'm half, in ways invalidating my experience. So,
Yes.
we've talked about that,
Right.
that invalidation between, culture of, making you feel like you're not enough, in
Yep.
regards to like both of us straddling these two worlds of,
Hmm.
people telling us we're not this or that, even though we are this and that.
Hmm.
So, kind of tell
Yeah.
me your experiences, these straddling of two worlds of that, how
Yeah.
you deal with it.
I had the exact same experience when it comes to that. Like I spent a lot of my life saying, "Oh, I'm half. Oh, I'm half," and I was sort of almost, I hate to say it, but raised to almost be like sort of, embarrassed of that other half, the half that wasn't American. So I would just say I'm half. And like you said, one day I just decided I'm, yeah, I'm half, but I am also a Mexican, I am that. Why would I deny that other half of me? And so I started just saying I'm Mexican because that is true. I'm Mexican American, that's true. And I decided to actively try to reconnect with that part of me that I felt was sort of uh, played down or denied while it was right there in front of me all the time. You know what I mean? Like, so we would be sitting there eating, you know, um, uh, menudo or whatever else, and then they would say that we're not that Mexican, so it was like it was bizarre, like sort of a gaslight when I was younger. So I think that by just going ahead and claiming I am Mexican American, it kind of it's my way of undoing all of that, that feeling of being othered, or like being not enough of one thing or another. And that is also a huge part of my drag. Like that is like a huge vehicle for me. Like my drag is a way to reclaim my culture, um, and rewrite my script to where I belonged where I didn't feel so much as that I belonged then. I feel like much more of a sense of belonging now, to my heritage and my culture, because because of my drag, and I'm able to pull, pieces of my culture into my drag. And it's been really, really liberating and validating to be able to do that, to be able to rewrite that script.
Yeah, yeah. I know for me, in my younger years, because I was always that shame in
Hmm.
being between the two worlds, I felt like I was overcompensating and being like, yeah, I'm Filipino, and so I'd look for, say, attire that said, I'm Filipino American, or
Yeah,
panay, or jackets or
yeah,
sweatshirts that said Filipino on it,
yeah,
things like that. Just, it's like, hey, I need to be seen. I'm seen as Filipino too.
yeah,
Um, and even when I was working on my thesis work, doing all this research, and it's like, what does this mean? What does that mean? It's like, even though I had these pieces of cultural, like you said, this reclaiming of,
hmm,
okay, this was a part of me. It's like, and I think as we're growing older, having this recognition, it's like, yeah, this is me,
yeah,
not having to feel so ashamed of, They say these people don't recognize me as this,
Yeah.
but I am. And now saying it's like, no, I am just like you said, reclaiming that. I like the way you put it that way.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So it's really important to be able to claim it and just say, hey, yeah, this is part of me. This is a big part of who I am. This when I think about being Mexican American, I have there's a pride there when it comes to thinking of my ancestors, my grandparents, my parents, my grandparents, my great grandparents. And when I look at pictures of that side of my family, there's a sense of connection and pride that I'm like, this is where I'm from, I appreciate it so much, and the struggle that 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 side of my people had. I feel very connected to that. And so, and it's especially in this political climate too, to have that strength, that you have that strong feeling that is just overwhelming, of the pride in your heritage, when you see people that are your color, that are like you, that are being persecuted, um out in the streets, like at every corner and every turn. And it's just, yeah. So it's I think it's more important to shout it from the rooftops more now than ever, that, like, if if it weren't for our ancestors and our, you know grandparents and our parents and our everybody else, um you know we would not be here. And I don't know why I would ever deny myself that story and that history of my people.
So let's talk about, so on King of Drag,
Hmm.
there was a moment that you and two other performers were just like, hey, tell us who those performers are and what that
Uh,
moment was about. For those,
yeah,
say they haven't seen the show. It's like,
yeah,
tell
yeah.
us
So
about
we
that.
weren't allowed to speak to each other before we made our way into the man cave. So I saw a couple of people that I thought maybe they're like me. I think they're like me. But I couldn't talk to them because we were on what was called hard ice, where you can't speak to each other because they want the reactions to be as genuine as possible. So we stood behind this banner, and then when they said roll camera, Pressure K punched through the banner, and we ran in there, and we were all running around excited about being able to meet each other. And I immediately made a beeline for Charles Galen King, because I saw him, and I had seen him online before, and he does like a Juan Gabriel number. He goes querida, he does that number. And I was like, I think that's Charles Galen King, and I'm gonna find out. And he had like a Mexico flag colors over his eyes as eyeshadow. And he had like the Pachuco, like, um mustache, and little soul patch. And I was like, oh my God. I ran over and I go, I'm sorry, I have to introduce myself. And I introduced myself to him, and he's like, oh yeah, yeah, I've seen you. And then I ran over, I go, excuse me, come here for a second. It was tuna melt. And I go, can I ask you something? And they go, yeah. And I go, are you Hispanic? And they're like, yeah. And then looked at Charles Galen King and looked at me, goes, are we team Latino? And we all started screaming and dancing around like drunk uncles. And it was like the most joyful moment that I can think of. I mean, there's a lot of joyful moments in that show, but that right there was the most. It was like my whole life was leading up to that moment,
Mm.
to meet these other kings that by the way, they have similar stories where they wear their culture on their sleeve. And yeah, it was just so cool. And we started dancing around going, primos, 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 it was great. It was a really good connection, and I'm so glad that little clip made it on TV, because when I was a kid, there wasn't very many people on TV that looked like me. There was just maybe two or three movies. And I would watch those movies and be like, oh, like most of those movies had Edward James Olmos in them. He was always the dad in every one of those movies. But there weren't that many movies like that there were people that look like me, and the ones that were there, I would latch on to them, and they're really, really deep in my psyche, those movies. So watching, I'm hoping that some kid sitting at home watching this show, some little queer Hispanic kid is sitting at home watching this show. Maybe if they're watching it and they see that, they can look at it and be like, "That's me. I'm that. Those are me." And like for them to be able to see somebody that looks like them on TV, I think is such a big deal. Um, and if nothing else came out of that, like that makes it all worth it, is just to be on that show just for the representation, just to show people, yeah, we do exist. There's a bunch of us here. It was such a cool moment to connect and like make those miles between us fall away
Mm.
and say, hey, you know what? For a change, I'm not the token.
Yes,
Like
yes,
there's like a bunch of us here. It
yeah,
was really cool.
yeah. I know for me, um, like seeing Filipinos on TV, or say Broadway, we have Leah Salonga,
Uh-huh.
seeing people like Nico Santos on TV, and representation, that there's more of this representation and visibility of
Mhm.
Filipinos as Filipinos and not, like you said, as some token. So,
Right.
on King of Drag, and just visibility as true to as everyday Mexican Americans,
Mhm.
how important do you feel is that visibility?
Oh, I think it's so important because, like I said, as long as there's people there showing that culture exists and that we are right there. I mean, there's so many of us, and we just don't get as much visibility as we would love to have. Um, there's a lot of people in our community right now, in Dallas community, that are like Latino queer performers, and they've been popping up left and right, and I'm really excited about that. So I have been keeping an eye on that too, because I was like, there's a lot of us here. So I feel like, we just kind of kicked the door open and ran up on the stage in front of the TV, and I'm like, hey, there's a bunch of us here. like like I'm just one, like there, and here's another one, and here's another one, but like we are just like one representation of our community. Uh Tuna is Chino Latino, and they are from New York, so they're representing their New York families up there. And then you've got Charles Galen King, who's in LA, and then I'm in Dallas, and so like we're all over the place, and we just happen to be like just one of many coming together. And I think I just felt so powerful. You know what I mean?
And it's so interesting to think about, like, even though culturally having these parallel lives, that even within culture there are these subcultures, like you're saying, Tuna has this different type of Mexican culture that they have up north,
Mm-hmm.
and Charles Galen in California would have a different type of culture over there, and we all know here in the South.
Yeah.
um,
Texican is a whole other thing, isn't it?
yes, yes, yes. I know for me, it's like saying, when people talk about, oh, I would need to go get some Tex-Mex food, and they're up in, I don't know, Colorado or something
Yeah.
like that. And always having this gauge of, like, but what does their queso look like? Are they
Yeah.
using shredded cheese or are they
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
else? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, it was really wild to that moment was what did you think when you saw it? When you looked at that, when you watched that
Mm.
little moment? What did that do for you? Like what?
For me, it was very much a moment, even though, not Mexican American,
Right.
it's like seeing the way that you connected, knowing that that's kind of the connection that I look for when I see other Filipinos, Filipino Americans. It's just like, oh my gosh, you understand a part
Mhm.
of what I deal with, what I grew up in, or,
Yeah.
parts of our culture, language, food, things like that, without even saying anything. It's like there are little tidbits you can connect with. And so
Yeah.
for me, it was just like a joyous moment of
Yeah.
like, yes, there's somebody else like me, even
Yeah.
though it wasn't about me, it was
Right.
about that
There's like
connection.
there's the connection is like some sort of mind meld we were doing.
Mm.
Yeah, like like this power exchange with each other, like this electricity that we were connecting with each other that way. And the weird, I don't know, I made a little joke afterwards. I don't, it may not be even like, it didn't make the cut, but once we got done jumping around and cheering, we like looked around and everybody was on the other side of the room. And uh Tuna goes, "Where'd everybody go?" And I was like, I don't, did we get deported?
Oh, ouch.
We're like, and that's like a joke that we can make, right? But
Yeah, yeah,
it was just really great to run into them and to like, and we've been connecting ever since. Like we talk all the time.
yeah.
Yeah, so we have like a standing call once a week to process our feelings and our talk strategy. And we've even talked about doing like an all Latinx show together and whatnot. But yeah, and also that was another thing, is like, because I did see that there was a lot of young queer Latinx performers here in Dallas, in the DFW area. That's why I was like, I think it's time to do just, and I'm not talking about like drag, just like the drag queen scene. There's a big drag queen scene with a lot of Hispanic performers, but there's not a show that has just queer drag performers that are like sort of like Gionova and Cisa Muerta and those kinds of performers. There wasn't one here,
Santiago,
specifically in Dallas. What's that?
Santiago,
Santiago, of
Alamo.
course, my nephew Santiago, of course. That and so I was like, we need to do a show with just, and I've been talking to Santiago about this for a while too, is doing a show where it's just all queer Latinx performers. And actually, that's funny because I was calling it Latin, but because I had not actually heard the word said out loud, but it's Latine. And that I discovered that the night of that show when I was talking to Gianova. They were like, I think it's Latine. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. So yeah, so they were teaching me stuff, I was teaching them stuff. It was really cool. We did it at a show called at a bar called La Onda, and it was such a joy to be part of. It was just such a beautiful celebration. um, yeah, and the crowd absolutely loved it because we at the end we put on Como la Flor by Selena, and we were all like, we were all singing in unison together about it. Yeah, and it was so cool. It was just a really good moment for us, I think. I did notice though, now that I think about it, there weren't any Filipino uh kings on King of Drag.
No, I know
Yeah,
they're out there.
they're out there, right? There are. Maybe season two.
We're having to be nurses.
Yeah. Oh,
Having
yeah.
to be nurses or teachers.
Yeah.
Uh, there's several, a cohort of mine, Jana. Uh, she centers out of St. Louis. She had started right after she had finished her MFA,
Mhm.
Filipino American Artist Directory, and so I know there's all these visual artists of Filipinos that connect, and so we're out there. So it's like I know there's Filipino drag kings, and we know some of
Totally.
the drag queens I know of, but yeah, I'd be
Yeah,
interested to know who is out there.
yeah, maybe season two, that we need to fill out a survey and say, hey, we need some Filipino representation because
Yes.
and also I don't there wasn't really much, there wasn't any Asian representation either. Oh
Oh,
well, I mean, Tuna Melt is Chino Latino, but
mhm.
more they need more of that too,
We had
There's
Wayne Newton up there as the judge, though.
That's true. We had Wang Newton as a judge, but as a contestant, we
Yes,
did
yes,
not. But
yes, yes.
maybe next time, this was just the first of many seasons, hopefully.
Yes. So
So
let's talk about drag kings.
yes.
So let's talk about Mustache Envy. So
Hmm.
Mustache Envy was established in 2010. It started as kind of uh, as a fundraising opportunity for kings. It was co-founded by me and another performer, Frankie Foreplay. We had worked with a prior drag king group, Dukes of Dallas. which was another troupe that existed in the mid 2000s. Um, and we started out as fundraising for suicide and crisis. And then later it was in regards to top surgery. Um, we during that season, the only thing that existed in drag, the big thing at the time was this organization called IDKE, which is International Drag King Extravaganza, and it was very much about traditional male impersonation values. So there were very strict rules on the way that you perform. Like
Mhm.
you had to bind, you had to apply facial hair, all these like very specific things. And
Mhm.
thank goodness there's now this uh, open interpretations of, say, what drag kings
Mhm.
can be. So like you had mentioned earlier, you had came into
Yes.
Mustache TV around 2013, 2014.
Mhm.
You were doing roller derby before that.
Yeah. Mhm.
So how did that transition into drag for people that don't know? Tell us about
Yeah.
how that transition came about.
Yeah. Okay. So, one of my friends was getting married, and we were all putting together, like, helping to put together this wedding for her, and somebody in the roller derby asked me to sing in the band, and it was the guitar player. They put together a sort of a good time band just for the reception. And they asked me to sing "Jungle Love" by Morris Day, because I was actually a bridesmaid, but they wanted me to come back, and this is what I ended up doing is they wanted me to go be the bridesmaid, run off, and change clothes so I can be singing, with the band afterwards. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like fun. And then he was like, would you do it in drag? Do you think? Do you think you could? Because I had dressed up in drag for other events, like parties that we had and whatnot, because I've always like sort of leaned towards this masculine um costuming style. I always portray the male figure in most of my costuming. So yeah, so he's like, would you do that one in drag? And I go, "I- I've never performed in drag before, but I guess I could. It sounds like fun. Let me do that." So I like borrowed my grandfather's shoes and like one of my mom's like work jackets that it was like just it looked it was sort of like an 80s sort of blazer looking thing, and like a tie. I think I had a bolo tie. I'm pretty sure I had a bolo tie. I can and I put this horrible like I don't know, $5 wig on. It was the worst drag, but I mean, all drag is valid, but this is really bad drag. And I performed and I loved it so much. It was so, I don't know, there was so much joy in what I felt. And everybody really responded to it well. And so the next time I had the opportunity to perform in drag was through the roller derby. It was Mustache Envy, and I think somebody from our league went to see Mustache Envy, and they went to Sue's and stumbled upon Mustache Envy, and they said this troupe, they're really great. Oh my God, you're gonna love them. And I was like, what is it? And they were like, they're a drag king troupe, and I go, drag kings, you know? And they go, can we do like a fundraiser with them? I was like, yeah, let's do that. I was like, what if we were all like, what if we just like, you know, on a lark, we just dressed in drag and performed with the Mustache Envy. Do you think they would be okay with that? And we talked to some people at Mustache Envy, and I know that Ashton was one of them. And I think there might have been somebody else too. I don't remember all of the performers that were there, but we did perform. Like they would be a Mustache Envy member, and then like one of the roller derby people dressed in drag, and we all performed. And then after the show was over, somebody like a producer from the was in the audience and asked me to perform in their show. And so I've been doing it ever since. And then that led me to Tuesday Teas, and eventually, after a while of kicking around at Tuesday Teas and Mustache, not Mustache, Sue Ellen's, um, yeah, I actually don't remember the moment I was asked to be in Mustache Envy, but I do remember the feeling of being in Mustache Envy was I remember the first time I realized I recognized where I was or what I don't know. the feeling I had was when we were sitting around talking about a group number, and it was Effie and Tex Copeland, who was Lily Lovely, I think, at the
Really
time.
lovely. Yes.
Yeah. And there was some Lil. We were all sitting around talking about our numbers, and I was looking around at everybody, and I was a little bit older. Of course, I was probably like 10 years older than everybody, maybe more. And obviously, them presenting the only one besides Lil, no, Lily Lovely at the time was film presenting out of drag,
Hmm.
and I was looking around going, these people like they don't care. I mean, they just accept me like as I am. I was like, why do they accept me as I am? Like I was second guessing it the whole time. And
Mm.
there was never the question. They never asked. I was the one that was like, when is the other shoe going to drop? Like, what is the joke on me here? Or, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I was thinking. But it was like this feeling of like total acceptance that I just couldn't, I couldn't accept myself at first because I was like, there's no way that these people like me, as I am. And they did. And it just took me a while to sit in that for a while, to be able to feel like I actually belong because I wasn't allowing myself to like believe that these people actually wanted me there and liked what I did and liked me as I was. And once I finally allowed it myself to feel it, it was like this feeling of total acceptance. And that's what Mustache Envy is.
I think we were very fortunate during those early years because several of those performers lived in Dallas's neighborhood, so
Uh-huh.
they lived very close together, and several of them lived
Hmm.
actually in the same apartment. And so there was a lot of opportunities because there was this closeness of proximity,
Hmm.
them getting together. So those of us that didn't live in the neighborhood, they were constantly getting together, and they, like you said, they were about 15 years younger,
Hmm.
10 years younger than us, and so they very much were still figuring out their queerness the same as us, and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And so I think because of their proximity, we got to uh, be a part of that
Yeah.
uh, because of that.
Yeah. It
um,
was so tight. It was so tight.
yes, yes, yes. So let's talk about drag kings and DFW drag. So Mustache Envy, was co-founded by me and Frankie Foreplay.
Hmm.
I had to step away for a few years to take care of some personal things. So Frankie had brought in a host, Lilith Gray,
Hmm.
that was a production genius, and she was the
Hmm.
host and really was the foundation of how production should run and things like that.
Hmm.
Phenomenal in the way that she ran things.
Hmm.
Um, and that model essentially is similar to what we're still using today.
Hmm. Yeah.
She was from the burlesque world, and so that's kind of how the integration, at least within DFW drag,
Hmm.
Queerlesque came about. Like you had said, Lilith had created Panty Raid, which was the
Hmm.
sister show for Mustache Envy.
Yeah.
She created Tuesday Teas to be the um, stepping stone for a lot of new and upcoming performers, for them to have the ability to have a stage to perform on. And that was a weekly show. Mustache Envy was only a monthly show.
Yeah.
And then later, she had to step away to take care of grad school things, and some of the other performers started
Mhm.
taking on those producer role things. You had
Right.
stepped there as a producer of Tuesday Teas. Um,
Yes.
if I
Brand
remember
new, brand
right,
new performer even, like, it was very
yeah.
new. Yeah. Mhm.
So what I saw is a lot of those that were producing, they would take, switch off. One person would be producer from one week, another performer would be a producer another week. So that way
Yeah.
they wouldn't have all of the load of continually producing a show every week.
Yeah. Yeah. We did keep in contact weekly and did have basically had like a quick meeting every week.
Mm,
But like we didn't have to be there every week.
mhm.
And we could take a week off knowing that that person who was producing that week was going to handle it. So um Yeah, and let me back up really quick because Lilith was actually the person who picked me up and said, "Hey, I really like what you're doing. Would you do this at my show? It's called Tuesday Teas. We're just starting out, but I would love to see you do more of that um, in my space. So if you're into it," I was like, "Yeah, okay, well, let's see what's happening." And I really liked it. And then, yeah, so Lilith was, I credit Lilith a lot with
Mhm.
encouraging me
Mhm.
to explore this um, avenue.
Mhm.
So Buck Buck probably wouldn't exist in the same manner if Lilith had not encouraged that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I definitely have to give credit to Lilith. But yeah, I ended up being a producer for Tuesday Teas pretty quickly, and it was a good experience to learn how to do production and whatnot. It was tough work,
Mhm.
but like it was really cool because there were so many different kinds of performances happening, all different levels. The pressure of being like super polished and everything wasn't there. It was more of like a place to work it out, you know. Um, you know, if you had something that you wanted to get filmed or you know, it didn't pay a lot, but it was a stage and a lot of really cool performance art happened there and was born there and you know grew from there. So there's a lot of performers that are still performing now. I mean, well,
Very
several of
much.
them are still
Yeah.
some of them are still performing, but like for a long time, for several years, a lot of those performers had you know expanded and grown up into you know much more polished performers, but they started out at Tuesday Teas.
Yes.
Hmm.
Very much so.
Hmm.
There's very little um, that are still performing, say, pre 2010
Yeah.
or 2015,
Yeah.
really. Before Nate Jones moved away from DFW, I would say he is the longest running drag king performer in active drag king performer
Hmm.
in DFW,
Hmm.
not the longest drag king,
Yeah.
because I know there's a couple of other people that I don't know personally, but have seen that they do still perform, just not as often.
Hmm.
Um, Besides you, Damien Dupree,
Hmm.
um, every so
Randy.
often, he'll come out.
Hmm.
Randy, um, Brandon Ryder, but Brandon more so is Ali Cornetti, has been
Yeah.
performing a long time. I think
Hmm.
Roxy Rendezvous came
Yep.
out, that's more drag queen, but she came out, I think, around the same time that you had come into Kinging.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
but yeah,
Yep.
even May
May
is
and
a queen,
Stephanie. Stephanie,
definitely.
I think Stephanie might have been doing it before me.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
because Stephanie was more so a part of the pageant world as drag
Hmm.
queen in the
Yeah.
pageant world.
Hmm.
Uh,
For a hot minute, Stephanie was my mom.
mm,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we were so young. We were so young then. Like, very, very like. At least I was very new. Yeah, and actually helped me get dressed for my pageant. The one pageant that I
mm,
competed in, I won the pageant, which was really, really nice. It was a good experience. I don't know that pageantry is for me exactly in that way, but um, but yeah, like Stephanie helped me get ready that day and whatever. It was just a yeah, that was wild. That was wild. That was yeah, I think it was Ben Dover.
mhm,
Ben Dover
mhm.
and Rio Renacito and then also Bastion Cox. Remember
Mhm,
Bastion Cox? Yeah, like
mhm,
that was in Oklahoma. So
mhm.
in that time, it was yeah several. I think I wonder if Bastion is still. I think Bastion is still performing. They're just in the pageant area in Oklahoma now.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. It's mostly, I think, mostly their partner Damien
Oh, Damien, right?
Matrix
Hmm.
performs a lot more than Bastion. But I know when we've gone up there, I'll see Bastion out of drag, so
Yeah.
that's always a nice little connection to see them there.
Yeah. Oh my God, Damien Matrix. What a force.
Yeah, I
Oh.
I would say we definitely grew up in drag. Even though
Hmm.
I'm not a drag performer, just as a performer in general, there's a lot of things that we grew up in. I know for me, I remember one of the shows that early Mustache shows, like I said, there was very traditional values, and there was this performer,
Mm.
Pax. They had come on stage, and they came from the burlesque world, and the number they had was absolutely fabulous. And they come out on stage with this energy and things like that. And they were stripping, which, you know, most drag kings did not strip, but they came from the burlesque world.
Yeah.
And when they finished stripping, they had a dildo on. And I remember at the time thinking, and this was, I think, 2010, thinking, oh my God, we don't do this in drag, this and that. And now it's just like, it's no big deal. We've seen
Right.
most of our friends essentially naked,
Mhm. Yeah.
pasties, you know, things like that. It's not a big deal. But thinking of the stigma and those that traditionalist of early drag for us,
Right.
how much that and Queerlesque has evolved. It's like there are still drag kings that don't strip, but Queerlesque is definitely very integrated, say, within our scene.
Sure.
Um,
Sure. But you know, it's what's interesting is that yeah, when I come from the original, like an original place where my original part of my drag was from a place where it was you know, there wasn't stripping, and you know, it was that time period. It wasn't stripping. It was about passing.
mhm.
You know, there was no gender fuckery going on. In fact, I remember very clearly that one of the performers, one of the drag kings came out and had a trans flag and did a Lana Del Rey song and got red for it. They're like, no, we don't do that. Like you know, yeah, they got red for it.
I'm like,
And
who and
I know,
who let
yeah,
them?
like now it's like very standard thing to do. I mean, it's not, you don't, no eyebrows get raised over that, but in that
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
I had never seen it where a mass presenting performer lip sync to a femme voice. I had never seen it before. And that was the moment I was like, it doesn't have to be a certain way.
Yep.
You know, it like fired something off in my mind, even though they got read for it by somebody, not me, somebody else. And I was like, huh, why would you not allow somebody to have that voice if that's their experience as a mass performer? Like if they, you know, why not, why would you try to deny them their you know, how they want to explore that gender, explore gender in general. So you know, fast forward many many years, yeah, it's total gender fuckery, which
Mhm.
is really cool. It's really cool because it's so what is it, the drag king world is less binary than it way less binary than it used to be.
Yes.
And
Yes.
in fact, I did you know, a femme voice at the last show. I mean, which in fact I think that might have been the first time my personal drag is mostly very mask presenting because I am so femme presenting outside of drag that I lean very heavily into my mask side. But I did do like Irene Cara fame, you know.
Mm,
But yeah, but that might have been, oh, I think that was the second time I've done that. The first time was at the Extraña show where I did Angelina's Release Me, which is what I listen to when I get ready every time I
mm,
get into drag. But yeah, but I absolutely love the gender fuckery of drag now because it's
mhm.
a really big fuck you. Especially when all of a sudden now we are classified as male and female only, right?
Mhm.
So the gender fuckery of it now is even more important to explore, and you know, and to basically say fuck you to the administration that tries to erase gender exploration.
Mhm. So I know for drag kings,
Mhm,
Mustache Envy came about because there was a need for a space
mhm,
for masculine presenting performers.
mhm,
Uh, DFW, as most cities,
mhm,
queens are very prevalent within the performance community,
mhm.
uh, and so there's a lot of stigma, or you know, kings can't. There's really nothing kings can offer. Kind of that stigma of that, and
Right,
so they're not really accepted into a lot of queen spaces. So
right.
that's kind of how drag but Mustache MV came about is making sure that that space still existed. And I know
Mhm.
for you, Drag King Brunch, tell us, about Buck
Yeah.
Sausage Party, why you did that.
Well, okay. So as I was saying earlier, that I love the gender fuckery of everything, right? However, when you're going into there's a lot of people in the world, into the mainstream world, that don't know what a drag king is.
Mhm.
They don't know. And so for them to be introduced to this gender fuckery, like first and foremost, I think it might be a little hard for them to process in some ways. So I like to start with like a 101. And I think that that's how this King of Drag show is too, is a 101, like, hello everybody, this is a drag king, right? And you present the traditional drag king vibe. I mean, there are some exceptions, in the drag brunch, but for the most part, I say whatever mask means to you is what I want you to put on stage. And so it's an introduction to the mainstream, in my opinion, what a drag king is. Let them get comfortable with what that is and understand what that is, and then we start Trojan horsing in, like, a little bit of Queerlesque and like and gender fuckery, like, yeah. So yeah, so that I think that's also what King of Drag is doing. They are introducing like 101. This is a drag king. Let's establish that to the outside world, since we have this platform to, a larger platform to explain to the world, to shout out, hey, drag kings exist. We are here. We've been here, and we just haven't had the platform till now. And, and then like, I love the idea of like, from that moment, from that spawning out with the Queerlesque and the uh, uh, gender fuckery part of it. But yeah, I think that just traditional drag king, needs a moment to embed itself in people's heads, because in the same way that drag queens have done, and everybody knows what a drag queen is.
Mhm.
You don't ever have to say it. No, but I've never in my entire life heard anybody say, what's a drag queen?
Mhm.
But I hear it all the time. What's a drag king? It's not a huge leap to figure it out.
Right,
But
right.
people don't want to make that connection in their head, or they just can't process it or whatever. So, we're there to do that for them. So to say, hey, here's a drag king is the complete opposite of a drag queen. Just flip it around. And
So
people go, I don't get it. Why would you want to be a man? Why would you know what I mean? I've heard
yeah,
that. I've
yeah,
heard
yeah.
that. Why would you want to be a man? And like, I've never heard anybody go, why would you want to be a woman, like, to a queen? Because I think it's because the female figure is, celebrated and revered, and there's a beauty and, pageantry, and, the beautiful dress silhouettes and makeup and jewelry and all this other stuff. It's elevated to this place where, people are always like, I don't know why you'd want to be a man.
Mhm.
But like it's, and I hear, oh, being a man is boring. And I get what they're saying.
Mhm.
I get what they're saying about that, believe me, but like, drag kings are not boring. Drag
Mhm.
kings, like, are anything but.
Yes.
We, yeah, they're the humor behind a drag king. I mean, if you've ever watched Moby Dick perform, oh my
Mhm.
God, they're so funny. And it's like taking the patriarchy and flipping on its ass. It's like a really important kind of humor.
Yeah,
Um,
that's completely a whole other conversation of how
yeah.
patriarchy is wrapped into the drag world and why
Mhm.
kings aren't as visible as they should be.
Yeah, that's
So
true. That's a whole, yeah, you're right. That is a whole other conversation.
we
Um,
we're we're coming up on about an hour already,
okay.
so we'll start winding it down. But
Okay.
on that same note, do you feel like kings have to be, at least Okay, I came in within the drag scene around 2006. So I've watched essentially 20 years of how drag has changed in DFW.
Yeah.
Do you feel like kings, at least in our current times, have had to be a lot more theatrical in the way that they perform? Costuming,
Yes.
presentation.
Yes. Yes, I think there's a lot of pressure to do that. But also, um, I don't think it's a bad thing at all to bring up like to do your costuming and get a little very creative with your style of drag like Danny Foxtrot does the big um dinosaur head and I mean there's some really cool shit that drag kings are doing.
Danny
I
did
think
that goofy FedEx number
yeah, yeah,
with the
Logan did
ball making the airplane.
yeah, and Logan did that one number sitting in a chair stuffed inside of a teddy bear, like a big
What
giant
is
teddy bear. Is from
Midsummer? Was it
Midsummer.
Midsummer?
Yeah, it's from
Yeah.
Midsummer.
For people that don't know, our performer Logan LaCour literally had a bear costume on, sat in a chair, and lip synced his whole number off of I think it's Midsummer, where there's a bear up in flames, and
Yeah,
Cyril Sibin, our performer, was behind him with these fans that look like flames,
yeah,
doing this behind Logan, and
yeah,
that was the whole number,
yeah,
literally sitting paralyzed,
yeah,
um, and that was the whole number.
yeah. It was
So
really, it's really cool. But yeah, I think that I think there's pressure from the outside to be more grand and embellish ourselves a little bit. But also we sort of push each other. We like backstage when we're talking, we talk about Logan has told me this before, and I've latched onto it, and I say it to people now is you make me want to be a better king.
mm,
And and then Cyril Sibin says stuff like we're respected in our industry, and like we bump chests and say that we're respected in our industry. We hype each other up. So we see each other, putting in all the effort that we've been doing for our costuming and whatnot, and it really inspires us the next time to do a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. So we're just like inspiring each other to elevate ourselves a little bit more each time. So the pressure isn't just it's not from the outside, it's the desire to want people to see us as, you know, um beautiful and entertaining and, we're not just, throwing on a suit and which is totally valid to do, but are throwing on like some jeans and the hat backwards. That is male impersonation.
mhm.
And we are trying to bring more to the stage than we used to. You know what I mean? Like, uh, I think in order to get on the bigger stages, we have to bring that kind of pageantry, and the story and the drama, that comes along with it. We have to do all that. And
Yeah,
I enjoy doing it. Yeah.
it's like I laugh a bit because it's kind of unfair because like Cyril Sibin, his day job, he's an engineer,
Yeah.
and so it's like he integrates a lot of like LED or some type of technology and a lot of the things that he does, and so it's just like he's brought this whole other different uh,
Mhm.
aspect of drag
Mhm.
into our performance spaces. So
Yeah. Cyril Sibin makes me want to be a better king.
mm.
In fact, he has made me a better king because he's put lights in some of my stuff.
Even Victor Entropy, he's
Mhm.
our tech
Oh
guy,
yeah.
and just the way what he exudes on stage,
Mhm.
the sexuality he
Yeah.
brings on stage is just that confidence, and even just knowing what he knows off stage in regards to, he is my go-to guy when it comes to tech stuff. Like if I can't do something or they'll definitely like figure it out. Just
Yeah.
besides that, what they bring to the stage and the way that Randy DeHardness,
Yeah.
um, the anime stuff, he's so immersed within anime and cosplay and stuff like that, and when he gets on stage, the audience just
Yeah.
eats it up. It's like everybody has these own little characters of what they
Mhm.
bring on stage. You bring so many different characters,
Yeah.
like You know, I think about like on King of Drag, you know, people like mentioned on that second show, it's like, oh, the guacamole is coming out. It's like
Yeah,
they don't know. They didn't see when you first brought T.O. Buck with the
yeah,
guacamole number was Carrie, it was my wife's birthday.
yeah,
We didn't know what to expect. And you went out there and you essentially like in way of like the movie Ghost, went out there and made guacamole with her
yeah,
on stage. And the way you threw chips in the air
yeah,
at the end of your number is just so iconic. Buck. It's like one
yeah.
of those things. It's like you have to be there to understand or see the videos to understand
Mhm,
how much there were so many years that Carrie, like you took a break from drag for a bit.
mhm,
There
yeah,
was so many years Carrie and I would have these conversations and she'd be like, you know, I'm going to get Buck back on stage. I'm getting Buck,
yeah,
you know, you were so talented. And so it was such this sigh of relief when you came back. And
yeah.
so,
Oh, I appreciate that.
so
Well,
let's talk, you know, like I said, it's like, we do got to wrap it up because we've
yeah,
already been over an hour, but talk about king shit. Talk about, you know, it's like we talk about this, but what you guys, you as brothers on King of Drag, you
mhm.
talk about king shit. Tell us what king shit is.
Yeah, it is an entire way of maneuvering through king culture. It is king culture. King shit is like when you, it's like this way of interacting with each other. It's a humility, a graciousness. It is a way of like, I don't know, like you help each other, you elevate each other, you lift each other up. Like I don't know if you saw in the second episode where um Pressure K said, "I've never done. In my mind, I was going to do a beard. They have a beard already, but they wanted to add another like beard to it, and they'd never done it. And they said, "Well, I hope I can get some help from Molasses." And Molasses spent time from their um, competition time to help Pressure K apply, teach them how to do a beard. And that is totally king shit right there. That is what we do. Is like we're not competing with each other. We are trying to help elevate each other together. It's like we're locking arms, linking arms, and trying to lift each other up. Like with Sausage Party, I like to bring in newer kings, give them a chance on the stage that they normally are not, because younger kings, they perform in places that maybe people that are in their 50s or 40s or 50s, like the brunch crowd don't see. So to bring them to that stage and give them another avenue of visibility, that's king shit. Like just to help each other be more visible, and not it's not necessarily a competition with us. We're not fighting for spaces. We're creating our own spaces and helping lift each other up along the way.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for spaces like yours, and
Mhm.
Rex Luther has
Yeah,
Broad Strokes,
yeah.
where a lot of the new performers. There used to be Glitter Bomb that was here in Denton, that was an offset of
Mhm,
something that Lilith Gray had created.
mhm,
Um, I'm thankful for these spaces that have allowed a lot of these new performers to come in and figure out how to create hone in on their character.
mhm,
Mustache Envy is very much more of a troupe, and so we don't get to have those type of opportunities. We've
mhm,
just after coming back from the pandemic, have just started being able to have some spotlight performers come in, but our level per se of stage is more so we want the more established performers. And so I'm really thankful for spaces like yours
mhm,
and Rex's that are providing these stages and giving these younger performers an opportunity
mhm,
to figure out who they are as a character.
mhm, mhm. And
Versus,
also, yeah, and also, time backstage um, to maneuver through performance spaces and whatnot,
Mhm.
because there's not a lot of spaces to do that where you interact with other performers, backstage and whatnot. There's Gender Blender does that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so there is, I mean, there's just a limited number of spaces. Stardust Productions,
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Marianne
yep,
and Jupiter.
and Daydream, and
Tap.
um, yeah. So there's a limited number of spaces, and so, and in fact, there aren't. No, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. There are very few spaces that are King produced, or you know what I mean, like, because there are plenty of spaces where there's a lot of drag,
Mm-hmm.
but most of those spaces are produced by by queens and whatnot. So it's nice to have King Productions and whatnot. I love that, but yeah, but I love having some of the younger performers come in. uh they work the show, do tomcatting and working the door and whatnot, and then sometimes they'll double as a performer, as a debut performer or whatnot. It's just a nice space for them to be able to explore it, and get super comfortable with. And some of them are very comfortable with it. I mean, like, oh my God, some of them are just out of the womb, just ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Even being a younger and a newer performer, like everybody's a new younger performer to me, but but even people that have performed for like a year, to me that's young in my head. But like one that I always am in awe of is Fawn X,
Mm.
and Fun K. They're also Fun K. I just really enjoy their persona.
They're
And
creative genius.
yeah,
I would say
totally.
that.
Totally
They
right.
may be new within the performance scene,
Yeah.
but their creative imagination is
Yeah.
out of.
And like I think they've been performing for like, a year and a half probably, right?
Mm,
And to us that's not very long, but it's longer than
yeah.
a lot of other performers. But yeah, but yeah, they're just, oh yeah, I love watching them perform. But
Mhm.
there's a lot of the younger performers that I really love to watch.
I think we're very, very fortunate in DFW. I always make the joke with you, maybe one day we'll meet in person.
Hmm.
And, we've known each other for over a decade.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I always make that joke just because I don't think people realize in DFW, say, uh, we live in Denton, which is about 45 minutes from downtown Dallas. You live in a northern suburb, which is about 30 minutes from
Yeah.
downtown Dallas. And for us to drive to each other's house, it's at least an hour, hour and a half drive between
Mhm.
where I live and where you live. And
Yeah.
so it's difficult, even though we live in the same metroplex. It's tough for a lot of us performers to get together unless
Mhm.
we all live in Denton or we all live in Dallas. And so
Sure.
when we're able to perform, these are, the opportunities. Like, we don't get to have that one-on-one time a lot of times to sit and chit chat and talk and have those, um, moments outside of that, because everything is so fast paced and so
Mhm.
business, but these are the times we get to commune with one another. So,
Mhm.
I make that joke, maybe one day we'll meet in person, but it's because it's so tough because everything feels so close, even though it's so far away.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I'm really thankful for DFW drag in general, because I feel like there are a lot of performers that are at least trying to create these connections and, like you say, king shit, where
Mhm.
there is this level of dignity and respect
Mhm.
for one another,
Yeah.
trying to help one another, not just on stage, but backstage,
Yeah.
off stage, um, things like that, that honorability that's
Yeah.
there in the performance world on and off the stage.
Yeah, because I feel like we all have the same goal, right?
Yeah.
We all have the same goal. We may have different ways of going about getting there, but we're at the end of the day, we're looking for visibility and our voice to be heard, and the world to see us.
Yeah. So we got to wrap it up because, like I said, we've been over an hour here. We
Hmm.
didn't really get to talk that much about value.
Hmm.
Um, but essentially, to kind of close us out, uh, let's focus on the idea of keep creating. Just because, like, say for instance, we have talked about, like, say for me, being in the visual art world, when I do submissions, we see people in the drag world when they submit things for festivals or for shows, and there are times, you know, we don't get into shows. Things happen. We see what happened, you know, on this last episode.
Mm.
So this you know, just the honesty in the push. And we've talked about, you know, it's like, oh, it's our Gen X, you know,
Yeah.
nature of, we just keep doing what we have to do because that's just what we do. That's our nature, our Gen X
Yeah.
nature. But, you know, talk about the need to continue to keep on creating, that things like that don't dictate our value
Oh,
just because something doesn't go as planned or what we thought would happen.
yeah. I mean, if I were to stop what it just focus too much on the times that I was rejected from a festival, or like I didn't get into a show or whatever. I mean, I would be stunting myself as a performer, because what is, you know, well, I think somebody told me once, you could be the juiciest, ripest peach in the world, and somebody still is not going to love you, you know. So I know that I'm not for everybody, and that's fine. So like there's been many festivals that I've not gotten into, or shows that I've gotten into, but I focus less on what I didn't get as what's coming for me, you know.
Mm,
So I just keep moving and say, that wasn't for me. That is, I have there's something more for me in store. And so I just kept moving. I keep moving, keep moving, keep putting myself out there, and eventually I ended up on this TV show. Well, that was meant for me. And then I go, oh, well, then I got voted off. I'm like, oh, that, okay. So,
but yeah,
it's like just part of the thing is like acceptance and rejection. It's all part of it. It's like all part of the whole fabric of performance.
so let me ask you this, because I feel, you know, like I said, there's that part of our Gen X nature of rejection and stubbornness is, you
Mhm.
know, we get to this mentality of, oh, I'll just do it my damn self. If, you know,
Yeah.
I don't do it, somebody, you know, who else will? I'll just take care of it. And
Hmm.
so, you know, I feel that's part of our nature, but
Yeah.
there are a lot of people that they don't have that kind of stubbornness, say, like we do. It's
Mhm.
like, how would you encourage somebody that, you know, that say doesn't have that level of confidence, or not knowing how to lift themselves up to continue to create?
I guess what for me, when like every time I get a rejection and whatnot, I put it into a pile. Basically, I mean, it'll be like this little pile of a bundle of sticks, right? Or a maybe even a building block. Let's more of that. I don't, because I'm not gonna. It becomes fuel though for me to build me up to something else. It's just a fire for me to prove them wrong, like okay, you don't, this is not I'm not for you. Okay, well, you just wait. You're gonna wish you got out on the ground floor here. so so like yeah, so my fuel is all of those rejections that ever happen. um I put those into a little pocket somewhere. I'm like, yeah, they'll see. I
Mm,
One day it'll be my day, and I'll keep working towards it. And even if it's just to prove them wrong, I'm gonna do it.
mhm.
So, to take those little negatives, the things that you perceive as negative in your head, and build them up into a bundle of fuel to create something positive from, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
So I
that's
know,
really good. Yeah.
yeah, I know us. We will talk forever.
Mhm. Uh-huh.
If Carrie was here, the conversation would
Oh.
add on even longer.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, just tell us real quick. Um, you know, Today is July 3rd,
Uh-huh.
2025.
Uh-huh.
The next few things that coming up, like say this weekend, you
Yeah,
have the Rose Room. You're
I
performing in the
do.
Rose Room. So for people say that don't know what S4 in the Rose Room is, tell us what that is and when those performance times are happening.
Yeah, okay, so the legendary Rose Room cast is a show that has been I guess it's been happening. It's an institution, really, hasn't it? It's been at S4 in the neighborhood for decades and decades. And it's the premier drag show in Dallas. And all of the Rue girls and all the big names come through to Rose Room for the shows. They even the Rue girls come to watch the shows. But yeah, and it's traditionally it's not a king space. Kings haven't really performed there much, that I
No, no,
know
no.
of. Uh,
Kings
there-
have not.
Oh,
The Kings have been on that stage on Thursday night, amateur nights and stuff like that. You performed there before. Has performed in
yeah,
Rose
for
Rose,
pageant stuff.
but this weekend is the first time that a drag king is featuring in the shows all weekend. So you are the first that is being able to perform at the
Wow,
Rose Room at all three nights of the main weekend.
that's
It's a pretty big
pretty
deal.
fucking cool.
So it's
Yeah,
like,
I'm
no,
excited.
it's not
No,
just you're performing there.
no
It's like,
pressure, no pressure,
yeah,
no pressure. That's why all my suits are at the cleaners today.
yeah.
That's-
Logan has performed at the
Mhm.
Rose Room before during the
Yeah,
weekend, but you're
yeah.
performing. They have an 11 p.m. show. Is that
Uh-huh.
correct? And a
Right.
12 p.m. show. So
Uh-huh.
you what are the days? What are the?
This is going to be Friday the 4th.
Mhm.
Each show is at 11, but Friday the 4th, Saturday the 5th, and Sunday the 6th. But also we have the watch party too on Sunday. So people can come to the watch party for King of Drag at 7:30 at Sue Ellen's. And then after that's over, around 9:30, head over to 9:30, 10 o'clock, head over to Rose Room and
Which is
um,
next door, like
two
two
doors down,
doors down.
and see some king shit.
Yes, yes. So yeah, I feel it's very important. It's like people need to understand. It's like, it's a big deal that a drag king is going to be performing at the Rose Room. And
Yeah.
so you need to show up and let people know, let the venue know this is what you want to see. It's like if we're not showing up there and letting them know this is the content that we want to
Mhm.
see, that could prevent more kings from getting on that stage. So it's the importance of needing to show up, and being in these spaces.
Yeah,
Like
and I think about this, and it's like this is not a when we're doing these kinds of things, this is not about me.
mhm,
This is never about me. This is about like
visibility of
the
kings.
visibility of kings in general. That's what my goal is.
Yeah. Show up in drag, show up
Mhm.
as kings, let them see, hey, we are out there.
Yeah.
Like you said, Sunday we have the watch party at Sue Ellen's, which is Sue Ellen's is one of, I think it's 26 lesbian bars in the
Mhm.
nation.
Mhm.
Uh, Only two in Texas. There's only two lesbian bars in Texas, and Sue Ellen's is one of them. We have the watch party at 7:30. You and who's co-hosting?
May May's
May,
this weekend.
your drag
The
wife.
Drag Live, yeah.
You have sausage party coming up
Mhm.
on 7:20.
Yep. Sausage party
Uh,
on 7/20. That's going to be hot goth summer. I'm telling y'all now. I haven't released the flyer yet, but it's hot goth summer, and it's going to have Jack Rabbit and Stellar Manx from the Boys of Austin, plus some of our favorite local performers as well.
and so that is hosted in Deep Ellum at Dot's Hop House.
hmm hmm
Ellum is east of downtown Dallas.
hmm
Um, Tickets, there are various pricing
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
tickets. Check out Buck Wild's page for that information.
hmm
Mustache MV show is July 18th. Our
hmm
theme of this month is Kings for Queen. It's a Mustache MV tribute to Queen, the band. We want to rock on and break free with your best Queen numbers. After all, the show must go on. And so
Love
that's
that.
kind of the theme here is the show has to continue to go on.
Yeah.
Um, I want to thank you for your time. You've been so
Yeah,
incredibly busy. I don't
the
know how
show.
you have time to text Carrie and I all the
I
time
don't
and
know.
have
Yeah, well,
a
y'all
conversation.
ground me. Y'all ground me. Like when I
Yeah.
start to spin out somehow, I'm like, oh. But yeah, the show must go on even if you get voted off. That's what
Is
I'm
there
saying.
anything else you want to touch upon before we dash out of here?
No, I accept when no matter what life throws at you, always remember who the buck you are.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's so funny. Oh God. It was
We
really fun.
appreciate your time. Go to the Rose Room this weekend. Check out Buck Wild on stage. Bring those dollars.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. We appreciate y'all listening in and watching to our listening to our conversation. And we hope to see you at any of our shows.
Yeah.
Support
Yeah.
local drag.
Yeah. If you have any questions, send us messages. We'll be, do our best to answer them. We love talking, apparently. Oh, thank you, Cher.
All right. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Yes.